All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome. I hope you enjoyed our first day of the conference. We're going to wait till about 2-3 minutes after to get started with the instructions. But I wanted to kick things off with a little icebreaker question in the chat box. And I would love to know, what was your pandemic project or projects? Did you become a gardener? Did you try baking and keeping a sourdough starter alive? That's what I did, and it lasted about 6 weeks before I killed it. Did you learn to knit or refinish your basement? What did you do, particularly during those beginning parts of the stay-at-home period? Katie adopted and trained a rescue pup. Awesome. She's a cute dog for sure. If this is your first time on Zoom, which would be surprising given the past year that we have, there is that chat icon at the bottom of the toolbar where you can pop that open and see what everyone is saying. Katie also resided and painted their house. Michael had another kid. Awesome. Gerald kept super busy. Steve did a lot of landscaping. He also kind of became quite a plant daddy indoors too, with his succulent collection. Jonathan tried to keep a daily walk going with the kids. Stacy repainted the house. So fun. And I think we've all found a few silver linings despite all of the incredible hardships of the past year. Joe worked on a garden as well. Alrighty here. Okay, we've got 48 folks here today. Awesome. 49, they're still coming in. So let's wait another more. Oh, Mark Johnson did a tree house. That's so fun. Hey, Karen, she says our 2-year-old had a picture day today in daycare. That's adorable. Rita traveled across country on a motorcycle. Oh my gosh. One of our other participants celebrated her mother's 100th birthday. You got to make sure you do that stuff. What a milestone. Taylor adopted a dachshund. Very cool. Yeah, there were a lot of dogs, there were a lot of pools, there's a lot of gardens, all of the fun hum things that we've been putting off for so long. Okay, we now have had 10 additional participants just in the last 30 seconds, so folks are still filing in here. Jeff went camping and doubled down on foraging and mushroom hunting. That is super fun. Love it. One of my favorite experiences, one of my first travel, I was in my early 20s, and I actually was sent to Alaska to do a training, and a very kind person at Alaska DEQ took me out hunting for mushrooms, and then we made a mushroom soup for dinner, and it was a really amazing experience. All right. Thank you for indulging me on that. Let's get started. Okay, so if you don't know me, my name is Jennifer Wilson, and I'm the communications coordinator for the private well class. And I will be your moderator today for this experience. This is probably going to be something that maybe you've never done before. Maybe you have participated in Zoom breakout rooms, but perhaps not in this type of format before. So here's what you can expect. This is going to be 2 hours. We're going to have some great conversations. And I'm going to break you up into groups of 4 to 5 attendees. And we're going to actually do this 4 different times, so you have a chance to meet different participants. This is, kind of like informal networking, but the little bit more formal version, a little bit more structured. So I'm going to give you some specific questions to talk about. And these are questions really designed to help advance our collective efforts to share information, learn new perspectives, since we all come from different parts of this sector. We're all intersecting with well owners, but often in very different ways. And I really think these questions are going to be things that we can lean on to move forward. And I think we can put our heads together to maybe figure out, okay, what is next for the private well community, and what are some of the projects that we need to tackle, maybe even collectively. There's been so many fun collaborations that have come out of our previous conferences, and I see that happening again from today's session. So we're trying to do our best to mimic that in-person small group experience that you'd have sitting at your table or standing in the hallway. And we think this event will add to that a little bit more. So these are the 4 questions. We did send those out in advance to everyone. Hopefully you've had a chance to maybe think about them a little bit. So the first round will be, what do you think is the most important thing for well owners to understand? Number 2, what is the number 1 current challenge in your work? Number 3, what kind of partnerships have been helpful for you? And number 4, how can we build a common level of understanding across professions? Steve, I wasn't sure if you wanted to kind of elaborate a little bit more on those questions, because I knew you had kind of some kind of motivation in how we put these together.
Not really. I think hopefully, given the audience we've had the last 2 conferences, it's always a good mix of folks from different backgrounds. And so, even like the second question on the current challenge you have at work is going to really vary. And I think the hope is that those different backgrounds can come together and maybe think outside the box of what we're used to in our own environment. Whoa.
That was weird.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't have a lot to add. I think the thing is, keep notes if you can, because what's important is that we share all this information when we get back together. And are we just getting back together once, or are we getting back together several times?
Well, I should do that several times.
Okay. And we're going to switch groups each time, right?
Yep.
So we'll get to meet, about 15 to 20 of our colleagues today. And I think that's the thing that's missing from doing this online from the 2 conferences we've had. I think anyone who's at either of our conferences before will tell you that the networking and the people we met, and just understanding that, what a small world we live in is, that's the way I operate anyway. And so that was the best part for me. And so I hope we get a little bit of that today as well.
Awesome. Thank you. And you'd have more to say. All right. So when you get into your groups, you may be wondering, how should we structure this? The first thing I recommend doing is just doing a quick round of introductions, just sharing, who you are, what you do, and maybe why you're here at this conference, what you're hoping to get out of it. And as you start tackling that question, note in your head or on paper, the places where you guys everyone's agreeing, and places maybe where there's differences of opinions. I think those are worth highlighting in both cases. And as well as any takeaway lessons that you have, maybe things that you hadn't heard before, or new ideas that you might want to try. And I do want to remind you as well, if you've not used it before, there is a whiteboard feature inside of Zoom that's under the share screen area. So if you share your screen, and then one of the options is to bring up a whiteboard. So if you want to take notes and draw pictures for the group, you can do that. And then you can even share your whiteboard back to the full group when we do our full group discussion. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create these breakout rooms. Before I do that, do we have any questions about the format, what to expect, and the questions that we want you to address? Let's go back to those real quick. I want to make sure everyone kind of knows what's going to happen here. I will automatically assign the breakout room. So it's going to be a random selection.
Hello, Ms. Wilson?
Oh, yep. Okay, go ahead.
Will the chat text also be available with the recording?
We can provide the chat with the recording, yes. We don't typically do that, but yeah.
Zoom is fairly common that people put in their thoughts there as well. So.
Sure, and when we do these breakout rooms, we're actually going to be the final recording will really be for our takeaways. We can't record all the individual breakout rooms and share those. So it's really, your chance to hash out ideas and then to share them back with the full group. So, you can feel like you're having a semi-private conversation with a small group of people, and then the final recording that we share will be, just the takeaways that you choose to bring back to the table. Okay, here, I want to make sure we have the right number of rooms. We're going to try 20 minutes this time. Hopefully that's enough time. If not, we can add 5 more for the next session. I will send a copy of the questions, a little broadcast to your breakout room. And everything could kind of happen semi-magically here, but there is a way for you to pop back to the main room if you need to ask me a question, or you can actually summon me and I can come answer your question inside your room as well. But hopefully all is good. And yeah. Yep, you are going to automatically be assigned. I'm going to press that button in just a moment here. I want to make sure we were all set to go. It looks good. And if you're ever having any problems, I will make sure that you kind of get back to your correct room.
Hey, Jennifer, Sarah mentioned in the chat that despite being in breakout rooms, your chat goes to the whole group chat, just so you know.
Yeah, so we will keep recording of this, the whole chat, but you should have your conversations orally if you can. So, all right, I'm going to send you off now. I'll go ahead and mute Joe. I'll send you off and I will see you in 20 minutes. All right. Here they come. Oh my gosh. We had quite a few join after we got started. So thank you for welcoming in your additional guests to each of your rooms. We'll probably make a few additional rooms next time because those rooms did get a little bit crowded. But I'm curious, what do you think is the most important thing for well owners to understand? We'll have about just 5 minutes here to share some of your takeaways. What did you learn? What did you hear that was interesting? What were some points of disagreement or agreement?
In our area, we had one person from CERCAP, we had someone from Milwaukee Regulation, and then I think there was someone from RCAP related, and it came down to the absolute ignorance of homeowners as to the nature of responsibility and use of a private well.
You have a solid point there where just the simple fact of this is your responsibility is an important starting point.
And not knowing what they don't know. And in some cases, not wanting to know what they don't know.
Yes, yes, that's very true as well. Okay, what else?
My group was pretty much in agreement with that. The most important thing is that it's their responsibility. They need to know how to take care of the well, and if they do have a problem, they need to know how to fix it.
Or who to turn to for help.
Or who to go to for help, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what we saw in our group too, is that just the responsibility and then the owners being familiar with what type of assistance is available to them. There was a lot of talk about free water testing that's available and the concern that people just don't know enough that they can take advantage of that.
Similar
Excellent.
thoughts in our group as well. Thanks to Ed, they're managing their own drinking water system. Collect samples twice a year before purchasing a property if it has a well. Ensure inspection, ask a lot of questions.
Great. What else?
Our group discussed the combination of and the importance of testing and maintaining, as well as using proper certified folks to help them achieve those goals, and how it relates back to the public health of their home and their family and friends that visit.
That's one strategy that we've talked about a lot with the private well class, of really connecting it back to protecting your family and protecting your loved ones and yourself as well. And I think we can, add that message on to the protection messages that we've been sharing and hearing in the past year. So I think maybe there's an opportunity to share more as we go forward. Any other big light bulb moments?
I think. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to agree with what Cindy was saying just now about knowing what to test for, because the thing is, we don't have that in school. You don't go to math class like, hey, this is what you need to know in life. But if they just knew their common maintenance, so they wouldn't have to just to be prepared for the future, pre-treat it, so they don't have to worry about it having issues one day, or bacteria, or a hole in it. Just learn that common maintenance yearly, what you need to do. And even if one day down the road, we could even get that in, like how they have certain specified classes in schools, we can just have maybe a week a year in schools that actually get taught, hey, if you ever buy a home with this is how you take care of it. Just, like the basic educational life.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities at the K through 12 level to just increase awareness that we get here's how we get our drinking water, and it might come from this place or it might come from this place, and what do you do? And I think some of those opportunities then those kids end up informing the parents We've heard a lot of that in our previous conferences as well.
Yeah,
All right.
our
ahead.
group, I think we discuss a lot of privacy issues, like representing a public health department. I think idea is if people can share their private well data, and public health department could proactively look on those data and reach out to the private well owner to advise them how to protect their health or to provide some information about the interventions. That's one thing. The second was like, again, a public health department could form a private well outreach group within the department, which they can hold a regular meeting with the public, private well owners, and they can try to message them. And, it's a lot of trust issue. Like maybe, private well owner may not, more concerned about their privacy, the data leaking out, and again, kind of damaging their property value or something. So maybe the outreach group will try to message the private well owners that we are here to help you. We are not here to blame you. We are not here to kind of provide your data to everyone else, but we are here to protect your health. So, having that outreach group will build a trust among public, and also public health department could provide some useful information about interventions to protect their health.
Yeah, those are really important points. I think when it gets to data, there's a lot of conversations about using it more effectively, but then we also have to use it responsibly in a way that is building trust. And so therefore we have to communicate about how we're collecting and using data and how people are protected in the same way so that they can feel secure.
If I could piggyback on something that Savannah said, in Delaware, 4th and 5th grades, they're in the state curriculum. There is a water unit for one marking period. The science classes go through the water cycle and all those kinds of things. And they used to have an event every year where they brought the 4th and 5th grades to an event at a state park, and we would set up, in my previous job, we would set up a display and ask these kids, where's your drinking water in your house come from? I don't know. Do you live in town? Yeah. What town do you live in? You tell them, okay. Well, we know they don't have a water system. You have a well. Oh, no. And they're studying this and they don't know.
Yeah.
So I think, I'm not sure that it's solely our job to educate, but we got to do what we can and try to make them understand. And I think schools is a good place to start.
Well, I think that conversation will come out in our third question as well, with the partnerships that are important, where, if we consider us the more informed community, how can then we make those connections to those who are having the personal connections, whether that is with younger people or with adults in whatever sectors they're in. Or,
and just one other example, and then I'll shut up. I don't mean to be monopolizing, but I think there's a lot of, I've been drinking that water all my life. It tastes fine. I got that from my husband and tested the water, and it was 21 parts per million of nitrates. Yes, you can't taste nitrates, dear. But I think there's a lot of that. The water's fine. And it all goes back to misinformation, lack of information, lack of understanding.
So there's a wide variety. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
So there's a wide variety of well owners. Some are perfectly capable of taking care of their wells, but there's many more cases where they're not. I've had a number of water operators even say to me, I had a person call me because they said they were out of water, and it turns out they're across the street. Our water lines are on the other side. They had a well right in their front yard, and they didn't even realize it. They were trying to figure out why the city wasn't helping them with the water. And so it's those folks, even on our assessment tool, we ask how close is city water, because there just are some people that really should not be on a private well. They don't have the wherewithal. They're not interested. And they don't realize the risk of providing to their family because of that. So I don't know. Those are the hardest people to reach as well. That's really where the problem is.
All right. So with that, I think we're going to move on to the next question, which, a lot of these conversations and the topics that we're talking about will roll over into the next one. but I am going to shuffle up the groups here, and we're going to create a couple more. And the next question is, what is the number one current challenge in your work? So as I said, there's going to be a lot of the same themes, but this is where you get a chance to share, okay, this is not even abstractly, what is my number one challenge? What is my specific challenge? And to take this group of people you have here to provide input to maybe help you take a step forward and figure out what's next for you. All right, I'm going to recreate those groups and send you off for another 20 minutes. Thank you for such a great conversation. All right, did we solve everyone's problems? I see lots of nodding, so yes. All right, let's go home. Let's go on vacation. We've solved all the problems. Okay, what is your number one challenge? And do you have any new insights on what you can do to move that forward? I overheard some of Steve's conversations in the other room, so it sounds like there's lots of connections being made, and so I hope that happened in other groups as well. So who wants to share?
I guess my takeaway from all of this is I want to get out of regulation and become a consultant so I don't have to deal with trying to make people do what's right.
There's some thought-provoking words there. All right, other takeaways.
This is Lynn. I'm out in Washington State, and I can give a little bit of a rundown. Arsenic awareness in our county is a problem. I think people are drinking high arsenic and don't even know it. Providing the water screening results, right? Texas had a really hard time during COVID getting the water samples tested, and getting information back to property owners has been a complete challenge. Testing guidelines, I think, are really inconsistent. Like in Massachusetts, the description of vary between one town and another town. One town can be really stringent, another town or another county, whatever, can be very loose. I think inconsistencies across jurisdictions is challenging. I did learn that New Jersey has a good time of sale program, or maybe thinking about that might be a good option for us, is to at least provide good time of sale guidelines. So consumer education is one of the biggest challenges. The water system people, making sure people actually buy the right water system and not get hoodwinked and buying the wrong system just because a salesperson is at your door trying to sell something. How do you get property owners to really know what they really should be purchasing is a challenge. For me, one of my biggest issues is single family residents that are rentals, and the owner doesn't really take care of their water system and doesn't do a good job, and the renters are really at risk of poor water quality. And I don't have codes or enforcement to be able to deal with that. So then we did put a link, I think everybody probably got it, that Connecticut has some really good information that Jim shared yesterday. So that's kind of our rundown.
Oh, thank you, Lynn. That's awesome. I appreciate you kind of sharing everything that was discussed in your group. We've also have a number of good comments coming in the chat. Let's see here. Jim just said, reaching our target audience with limited funding for advertisement. And when you do reach someone, trying to get them to understand the importance of knowing the basics about their wells. So it's definitely a multi-layered problem. And Lynn mentioned so many different intersecting parties and sectors, medical community, real estate. It's such an interesting problem because it does cross so many boundaries.
And piggybacking on that, our group talked about, for our internal programs, the lack of funding or lack of consistent, continuous funding. As Diane from Texas said, a lot of her funding is soft funding. So it's like not knowing where the next not paycheck, but where the next funding cycle or funding is coming from. And we also talked about the ability to get data accurately and the lack of data when it comes to trying to identify plumes or identify problem areas. That in some states, the well logs are not all they should be and not sufficient for the information. And then we had a problem with our Delaware state testing program that we did on a pilot basis, getting the data from the state lab. They would send it to the homeowner, but they wouldn't send it to us in spite of all the marking we did of every bottle and every chain of custody form and every request and the promise to do so. And we still didn't get all the data. So some of that is interagency cooperation can sometimes be a challenge, or maybe the interrelationship of agencies that we're not always aware of. I don't know. And please, some of the other group jump in. I'm not just the self-appointed spokesperson here, please.
Well, Jean, I think that's a really important point, that sometimes you have very specific problems, that there's a procedure there, a process that needs to be ironed out. And so that's something that people can get together and talk about. It's not just these kind of big abstract things that can sometimes feel unwieldy. We can tackle these small issues that sometimes then do have a kind of trickle up effect to some of those bigger problems. I wanted to highlight Barb Lukanen's comment here. While some people may not know much about their wells or water supply, well owners are smart enough to understand it if we do a good job of explaining. Please, let's not suggest they can't understand or disparage their intelligence. That's a really thoughtful comment. Thank you.
I would kind of piggyback off what Jean has already talked about. I think here in Nebraska, realistically, we are a small community. We're a pretty tight-knit community. And I've been lucky enough to build great relationships with our state lab, the folks that do our tests, and just like calling and saying, hi, how's it going? You know, what issues are you receiving from us that we can help streamline? Goes a long way to building those relationships. I can call up the lab manager at any time and request any data that I've put my name on for a sample that I've collected and get it usually within 15, 20 minutes. So I think building those relationships and conferences and things like this, specifically what we're doing here is huge to actually getting our jobs done. And I've looked in the comments, I think, specifically that isolation for younger professionals is definitely an issue. Having someone to talk to, having someone to, pick someone's brain about some oddball thing you've never seen can go a long ways. And communication is a huge, huge aspect to what we do. But definitely building those relationships and moving forward with them and preserving them is a huge deal for what I do here in Lincoln.
Thank you, Michael.
Well, for me in Group 5, one of the issues we discussed was having stronger broadband for areas so you can do the virtual trainings as well as virtual assessments, and the whole trust factor with the community. We have a lot of stuff written on our cards, and, all these accolades and all these alphabets that we have collected over the years. Sometimes they can be a little scary when it comes to handing it to a client, because the first thing they think is, oh, you're EPA, you're going to tell something to somebody and they're going to come take my property. So by just basically assuring the clients, the well owners, that we're here from their part, where, hey, the health department sent me down here to give you guys the help, but I'm here for you. I'm not here for the health department.
Yeah, no, that's super important too. And I think there's having the multiple layers, because obviously the regulators, they have their role, but the folks that aren't the regulators have a different role that can be very supportive of them. Ginger, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to attach on to Barb's comment earlier about the lack of understanding and knowledge that our well owners have, and the idea that it's a process, right? That not everything is going to come to them in one shot, that this is a complicated system and there's a lot going on. And so the patience that you have to kind of instill in them that we will get through this, but it's going to take some time. Not only testing takes time, but putting all the pieces together and showing that patience to them is something that is going to help them recognize that it is going to happen, but it's going to take a while. And then the other, thank you. And the other thing I wanted to mention was the workforce, right? We have as a group, we have a lot of passion in this subject, and trying to get that passion across to others. They see the passion in us, and there's a lot of people that are very excited about their particular well, but then talking to the whole community and getting more involved so that we can have broader reach with our efforts, that's a challenge in and of itself.
Well, I think just adding on to that, that sometimes there is the homeowner who is the champion within their area, and they can be another ally for you to help communicate with their neighbors and family members. All right, we do need to move on to the next session if we have a hope of getting through all the questions today, but this is so terrific. I'm seeing so many possibilities of trying to kind of continue these conversations in the future, because I know how important it is to get you guys face to face with each other, even if it is virtually. So the next one really adds on to the conversation. What kind of partnerships have been helpful for your work? And I think, you know, the sub question of that is, what are the specific examples of partnerships that have really worked well for you? And maybe what are some of the partnerships that you are trying to figure out how to develop in your area? Okay, I'm going to recreate the groups here. And we will see you back in 20 minutes. Have another good discussion. All right, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully that continued to be a lively and insightful discussion. So tell me, what kind of partnerships have been helpful for you?
Nobody's talking, so I'm going.
Go ahead,
Pam. And my group, if I leave out some of yours that you mentioned, please jump in. The health agencies, the local county agencies, the homeowner associations, the like WIC, the faith-based organizations and communities are very helpful to a lot of the group states that we were talking to in our group. Hospitals, health departments, I mentioned. Okay, so did I get them all? Goodness. Okay. So many. Water well contractors. And the well service people. Okay, I quit.
No, that's terrific. And I think it just highlights that there are so many possibilities out there. And, you know, there may be even multiples of each of those types of people in your area. And so it's a fun challenge for sure. Any good examples that you had shared? Jesse, you're unmuted. You have something you want to say?
I'm not unmuted. I can just hide it with my headset, so it looks like I'm unmuted. We were talking about all kinds of partnerships in our breakout group session. Everything from professionals to community members to everything. So, I mean, in my opinion and in my professional work, being more educational and free service, anyone that's willing to talk about our program, anyone that's willing to allow us to support them or incorporate us into something that they're already doing, or even just hand out our flyers or utilize us to help them alleviate some of their own actions that they're doing, is a great partner to me. I partner with anyone that's willing to do anything, that wants to give me a call. I will set something up and do something. I have never found somebody that I can't work with. So, and there's more than enough work for all of us. So even in my own career, I got to reach out to partners to do things that we don't support. We don't support a lot of the testing or the funded actions, you know, like the well plugging and things like that. So I have to find partners that I can reach out to in my region where I can say, well, I can point you at this person who might have some funding to help you plug that old well, or reach out to local partners, well drillers, pump installers, to say, hey, these people need help with their problems, those types of things. So, oh yeah, and I mentioned in the chat box, Pam is an awesome partner. I call Pam to get all kinds of answers, and I tell you what, she'll give me every answer I want as long as I'm willing to learn something. So, great partnership there. That's all I got.
Jesse, I mentioned you as a partner too.
Well, and I think you raise a really important point that sometimes the most important partners you could have are the ones that are kind of already working alongside you in their own domain, already super engaged. And so that's often a little bit easier road to travel than to just say, I need to have a partnership with this particular organization because that would be good. Well, yes, that'd be good. But if there's nobody there that's receptive, you might need to be patient until there's staff turnover or the winds change in order to get that partnership going. You kind of always have it there in the back burner. But the real partnerships, the ones that are going to be able to be made now, are the ones where so-and-so says, oh yeah, that guy over there, he does that thing, or that gal does that thing. So you need to go talk to them. So those are the relationships that really can get things going. Tanya, I see you're unmuted. What do you have to say?
Yeah, we talked about university extensions as being potential partners. Virginia Tech came up specifically. They're very helpful in Virginia. They have a really good program, lots of information on their website. It was also brought up just working with other state agencies has been helpful. The health departments, local NEHA, National Environmental Health Association affiliates, they do educational programs, so maybe it's a possibility to partner with them and get them to branch out their education a little bit. It was brought up that Zoom, and to the extent that everybody's gotten familiar and comfortable with Zoom, is a big boost in getting the education out and helping build relationships and communication, especially when the homeowners can't necessarily travel to where the educational meetings are. And then working to build not so much a health department or regulator to well owner relationship, but helping to build that well owner to well owner network. So that they feel like they're kind of in charge of their own fate as opposed to being told what they have to do. And then I know a couple of people have mentioned contractors, well drillers, pump installers. As a representative for the water treatment dealers and manufacturers, I would encourage reaching out to them as well. We have a professional certification and training program that goes into a lot of detail about how to make sure that they're testing correctly and testing for the right stuff. I'm sorry, commercial. But anyway, I'll stop it there. They're very knowledgeable, and on the WQA.org website, we have listings so you can find who's in your area. And I would recommend that you look for those that are certified.
So I know you need to move on, Jennifer, but one thing I want to say is several things that have been mentioned here are either part of the talk that I'm going to give this afternoon or part of the talk Sarah and I are giving tomorrow afternoon on collaboration and partnerships. Yeah. And so they are important, and we've done some work to understand how to develop those partnerships and those sorts of things. So I just want to mention that because some of you are kind of stealing some of my presentation here in our conversation. So
no, that's great. That just means that your presentation is on the right track. So I think that's awesome. All right, definitely let's move on to our last question. I'm going to shorten the time just a little bit so that I can respect your lunch hour. I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to eat before we hop back in, particularly if you want to go to more informal networking. But our last question is, how can we build a common level of understanding across professions? And this one definitely ties into Steve's presentation this afternoon. So kind of a nice lead into that. I will create the groups here, and we're going to shorten the time to 15 minutes just to make sure that we can have a little bit of time at the end for wrap up. All right. See you on the flip side. All right, last round. You guys made it. Awesome. Thank you for your willingness to participate in this bit of experiment. I hope you had some awesome discussion. So does anybody have any solutions? How can we build a common level of understanding across professions?
One of the things in our group that we were talking about was just there's a need out there for different continuing education units for various groups, doctors, nurses, installers, and all of those groups. So that does seem to be a really good place to kind of get conversation started with different organizations.
Yeah,
Another
for
thing
sure.
is education, younger elementary education. You ask a kid where their water comes from, the first thing they're going to do when they get home is ask mom and dad. And that starts a very good process of a discussion, if you will, of what we have and what we need to do. And if you can explain to the kids all the different things that are going on in terms that they understand, it's surprising what the parents will learn.
100%. No, excellent points. I really like the point about continuing education, especially because I think sometimes you have to tap into that extra bit of incentive to get the information from A to B.
And it is interesting the number of groups that are outside of what we normally do, like the medical profession, nurses, things of that nature. Those people need massive amounts, and what we do interrelates very well with them. Realtors, banking people, for example, the different lending institutions, kind of step away from just the general people that drill the wells or put in the pumps or sell the water systems or the laboratories, but look around at some of the other peripheral groups, even some of the septic installers and things of that nature.
Could I just echo something that Scotty said, which, by the way, that was my nickname in college, too, because that was my maiden name. I'm Scotty, too, with an IE. When my dad was on chemo and had a suppressed immune system, I spoke to his oncologist, and I said, maybe I'm on a well. If he comes to my house, I should boil water or whatever. And he said, just get him some bottled water. So there's a little bit of, and of course, being a water person, I went in the air, but, I agree with you, particularly the medical profession, above all, should know. But I was really amazed at that response. So I agree with you 100%.
Thanks, Jean. Sarah, I saw you unmuted for a second there. Something you want to jump in on?
I typed it in the chat because I know that we're low on time, but what we really talked about was, we talked a lot about the awareness that well owners themselves need to have, but us as professionals in the industry really need to be aware of one another and the resources that are out there, and not be afraid to make referrals to other and provide complementary services, because none of us are going to be the end all be all for a well owner. Everyone sort of has their own niche, but maybe together we can provide that suite of services that they might need. We might go in and provide a well assessment and testing, but then it's like, oh, I have a treatment issue. How do I deal with that? And being able to pass them along to, maybe someone that can help them with that and provide them with some funding opportunities to put in treatment, especially for low income homeowners that can't afford that. But sort of making sure that we know who's out there and what's available, and not just relying on ourselves to serve those folks.
Thank you, Sarah. Alma, I see you are unmuted. Did you have something you wanted to add?
No, thank you.
Oh, okay, no problem. I'll just go ahead and mute you so I know. All right, any last thoughts? Steve, do you have any wrap-up thoughts for this?
No, there's a lot of issues. I think what Scotty said is good to see you, by the way, is a really good point. And that, we had Carolyn Murray here for that very reason. We think reaching out to doctors is a really important avenue because well owners will listen to them. But it's, and it's not, the problem isn't, it's funny because I'm going to talk about this afternoon. So I won't say too much now, I guess, because when we don't have time. But we identified in our group more of the issues related to getting to a common level, and that is you can reach some but not all. And how do you get, just like we talked about how many well drillers are in their well drillers association. I assumed in most states that's like 80%, but in this particular state it's probably closer to 40 or 50%. And it's not the 50% that are members of their state drillers association that are probably the issue. It's the other 50% who don't attend those things, aren't trying to learn more, learn from their peers, and just want to do their job. But those are the hardest ones to reach. So how do we bring them up to that common level of understanding? That's really the tough nut to crack. So, and that's just my opinion. So anyway.
That's where we required that the drillers have certain numbers of CEUs to renew their license.
Yeah, yeah, right. No, and most states do that, but not all. So.
All right, with that, we will wrap things up. We will include both a full recording of our conversations here as well as the chat inside of Socio, same link as the other recordings. And I just want to thank you for your participation and hope to see you at this afternoon session. We do have informal networking starting at 12:30 Central Time, and then we have our next round of lightning talks at 1 p.m. Central Time. And with that, I will bid you adieu for now. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.